Now, when you go into sales management, you are no longer pointing and going. You are pointing and going to a degree, but you are also looking back and assessing. You're looking back and assessing, and then you're looking at the systems of the salesperson. You're looking at the systems of the trainer, and then you're looking at your own systems to make sure they're all optimized and efficient and producing the required results in order for the success of your team. Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams. All right, guys, welcome back to Building Great Sales Teams. This is episode 319. Insane that we've been through 319 of these. And I wanted to go ahead and let you know I did make a decision that I'm going to continue the Building Great Sales Teams podcast. I even started a last episode, and as I kind of just looked at the body of work, I just couldn't do it. In my head, I'm like, dude, you can record an episode a week. At minimum, you can bring back guests and start doing that again and start having those conversations again. So I'm going to keep it rolling. If you guys don't know, I do have another business called Podcast Partners. Nika, my amazing systems director, runs that business. We have 2 clients in that. And so it's not like this huge business or anything like that. But because her and the team do such an amazing job on building great sales teams, it just made sense for us to do that for some of our friends. It's definitely not a focus or anything. But all that being said, we've got the systems down, and she's a killer at editing and reels and all the things that go into supporting the podcast and making sure you guys get the content across YouTube, across Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the places that it's distributed, as well as overseas. I know we have a lot of overseas listeners too. For all those reasons, I wanted to keep this going. And so today, let's talk about sales management, right? So much of what I talk about is how to build the sales program, how to manage salespeople to a degree. But, when you look at the profile of a sales manager, which this was a discussion I was having today with someone that is in multiple roles in the business. He's doing COO work. He's doing regional work. He's doing manager level work. So when we look at the hierarchy of sales management, a lot of times we are typically doing 2 jobs at once, whether it's a trainer that's also a sales rep, or it's a manager that's also a trainer. And that's the way that it should be. Let me start out by saying that, especially in the first 90 to 180 days of a management position or a leadership position, I really believe you should be doing both jobs long-term if possible. My regionals for Argenta often managed 2 other offices at a regional level and their own office at a local level. This does one of 2 things. One, it ensures your compensation at a high level, right? Because being able to pay a manager is a lot more justifiable and margin friendly than having to pay a regional that isn't managing, right? So they're holding 2 positions essentially. But if you set this up properly and you have good scopes of work, this isn't an issue like it is most of the time. I'm doing 2 things at once. No, it's very much at a regional level. You are there as a coach and a consultant to help that regional and to hold them accountable, right? At a manager level, you're working the position, right? And so understand what I mean when I talk about these multiple roles. And so when you're building up a sales-centric company, a lot of times you will hold a trainer role, a manager role, a operations role, a systems director role, a marketing manager role. So you have all these specific roles, and what happens is you wake up in the morning and all the roles tell you what to do instead of you telling the roles what to do, basically. And so one of the first and easiest ways that we figure this out is we look at our calendar. And if your calendar is empty right now, I'm telling you, you're going to have a problem. Unless you are just this insanely talented or have an amazing idea that nobody else has, you're going to have a problem in business if you look at your calendar right now, the one that you actually use, and it's empty. That's a huge, huge problem. having to remember appointment times for one is incredibly old school. There's no reason to do that. We have this amazing technology now, but more importantly, what managing your calendar properly does is it says, okay, if I am in all these roles, right? If I am a sales manager, but I also train, but I also make sales, then I need to understand, okay, do I want a flow state on certain days of the week where I can just kind of work on a certain role? Like Mondays are great for management flow state. Mondays are fantastic for that because you're setting targets, you're rolling out action plans. And so if you are out of the field as a sales manager on a Monday, that is the best day to be out of the field. It's also when your reps, when your people typically need you the most, they're in a big picture mindset. They're in a fresh beginnings mindset. And so they are most open to executing the plan that you laid out for them on Monday versus on Thursday when they're just trying to hit that target, close out the week, do the basic things to make the basic that they want to make, right? So Monday, you should be in a management mindset role. Tuesday is typically for data and analytics, right? So Tuesday is when you get to reflect on the week before. Monday, you motivate the guys. You see, did we hit our target from the week before? We're not going to get all the deep numbers, right? They typically take a day or two to come in from the week before, but we will know, gross sales volume, gross sales amount, how many units we sold, maybe even if we had a few customers fall through the cracks, that type of stuff, right? And so Tuesday, we can look at data, we can look at analytics, we can break all that down. So Monday and Tuesday is more of the management. Wednesday and Thursday, you want to be acting as a manager. You want to be training. You want to be recruiting. You want to be in the field to a training degree. And then Thursday, Friday, maybe even Saturday, if you're in door-to-door residential home services, you definitely want to be in the field those days, doing what you do and having a nice mix. Now, depending on the scope that you have in front of you, the question here is, okay, how much time am I spending in each role? And so at like a manager level, do I have events in my calendar that I can color code, say blue, right? And then at a trainer level, I can color code those orange. And then as a sales rep level, I can color code those green. And how many hours am I putting to each section per week? And how much money am I making in overrides as a manager, in overrides as a trainer, and then in commissions as a rep? And so you can very quickly start to see where your time's being spent and where your highest earnings per hour is. And it should be at the manager role, right? And so what you want to do over time as a sales manager is expand that manager role, get that manager role to have more space on your calendar. And you can only do this if you're executing at the salesperson level, so you can train properly. If you're executing at the trainer level, so you can lead properly in the field. And then you start executing at the manager level. So it's a shift in time on your calendar from rep all the way to manager if you're holding all three roles. Now, let's just say you got into a management specific role and it's the full-time role, right? So everything that you do from a manager level impacts the team, but you can't have that impact as a trainer. You can't have that impact in the field anymore. The first thing and the highest thing I'm going to recommend you do as a manager is have a pulse on field level things. Okay. It's very hard to do when you're not out in the field. So you want to have that pulse in terms of one-on-ones is the best way to have that, right? You want a one-on-one 2 weeks into a new rep's journey at the office or into a new rep's career in your company, right? So 2 weeks in, you hit them up for a one-on-one, you get a little feedback, you find out what they're motivated by, who they are, all that good stuff. And you show them that special attention that they wouldn't expect at any other job for the boss, at least the nearest boss to them, to come down and speak to them at their level. So that's huge. We want to get the pulse. And then next, so we want to have a constant pulse of what's going on in the field through one-on-ones, the first one being 2 weeks in, and then maybe having depending on how many reps you have on your team, you may want to do a one-on-one with every rep monthly, or quarterly, or annually. And that's going to give you your pulse, right? And then trainers should be 3 times as much contact as the reps are. And then managers, obviously, they're going to get, you're not managing managers yet at the sales manager level. So we won't get into that. I won't make this too complicated. So you want a good pulse of what's going on in the field and what's going on in middle management by having scheduled one-on-ones, right? And then you want a good cadence. And just like I said earlier, understanding this cadence is important. Early in the week, we want to talk about targets. We want to talk about strategy. Middle of the week, we want to make sure that we're executing on training and recruiting, and that we're on the way to our targets, and we're coaching the team to hit those targets, right? And then by the end of the week, it's the push. It's what do we need to do to hit this target this week? What are we missing? And also making sure that we're documenting any of the challenges we've had throughout the week so that we can address them come Monday and have a strategy in order to quell those challenges, right? And so we've got a pulse. Now we have a cadence. Obviously you want that sales meeting, or that I should say check-in to be on Monday. You want your sales meeting on Wednesday or Thursday. I know this sounds, if data provides, then Monday is great for the sales meeting. If you have to wait for data to come in, and I'm talking like, payroll, I'm talking recruits, I'm talking like the holistic data that you can actually make educated decisions on, usually takes a few days to come in. So your high-level sales meeting, where you're going to bring your trainers into it, is going to happen on Wednesday or Thursday. The office-wide or the management team that you have is going to happen on Monday or Tuesday. And that's typically going to be, basic stuff around sales. It's going to be basic stuff around targets and making sure that everybody's hitting their goals, right? So Wednesday, Thursday is strategic. It's very much that second meeting of the week is very much data-driven conversation, okay? So we've got our pulse, we've got our cadence of our meetings, and then you want to look at your scope, right? So if you have been logging these things in your calendar, how much time you're spending where. And if you're not holding multiple positions, you're not also training, you're not also in the field with your reps, then your scope gets very easy, because then you can start looking at your calendar from the week before and understanding, okay, this is how much time I'm spending on coaching. This is how much time I'm spending on systems. This is how much time I'm spending on reporting or admin work. And this is how much time I'm spending on, working with other departments to make the salesperson's job more fluid and less admin-y and more salesy, I guess you could say, where they get to focus on sales, right? And so you have this scope that happens. How much time are you spending on recruiting? That's another one. So I would say admin, recruiting, coaching as a sales manager, and admin, recruiting, coaching, and then I would say reporting. Yeah, reporting, where you are pulling reports, you're pulling the data, you're pulling the metrics, and you're getting it prepared, not from an admin level, but from what am I going to focus on this week level in terms of the metrics. And so that's admin, coaching, recruiting, and then data are just some of the buckets that you may want to spend time in. Maybe you're doing some customer service stuff. Maybe you're doing some marketing centric stuff. Whatever those buckets are, identify the buckets and color code the buckets in your calendar so you know what you're spending time on where. And what you're going to start realizing is the admin centric weeks, or the data centric weeks, or maybe even the marketing centric weeks where you're dealing with other departments, your numbers are going to be affected the next week or the week of. And so you want to pay attention to how much of what color is on that calendar, so then you can start making decisions on what you need to make sure is a fail safe, right? So I know if I want my guys performing the way I want them to perform, I need to spend 55%, 60% of my time coaching, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's sales meetings, whether it's training my trainers, whether it's continuing education, right? And so it becomes very analytical at that point, in which you guys know that's what I am, right? So cadence, meetings, scope of work. And so as a sales manager, these are just three of the things that kind of you need to focus on and structure about what you're doing. Here's the problem. Most sales managers get promoted and they've been a trainer or a sales rep most of their career, and they've been able to kind of just point and go. Now, when you go into sales management, you are no longer pointing and going. You are pointing and going to a degree, but you are also looking back and assessing. You're looking back and assessing, and then you're looking at the systems of the salesperson. You're looking at the systems of the trainer. And then you're looking at your own systems to make sure they're all optimized and efficient and producing the required results in order for the success of your team. And so Going back to this one last time, it's pulse of the team. It's the cadence at which you operate. It's the scope and the time you spend in the different buckets. And the last one is it's your assessments. It's the way that you look at your data overall, your culture overall, your team's mindset overall, and are able to manipulate all those things into a productive department or sales team, however you want to look at it. So those are basically the sales managers. And this is this is straight up, guys. I flipped this from a wrap up episode to a tactical episode for sales management within a minute. You know what I mean? So I told you guys that more of what I'm doing on the consulting side and more of what I'm doing with Check Sammy and the partner program is going to come out in this. And so I had a call with one of my guys today that I'm consulting the company and coaching him. And it was a fantastic call. It was a fantastic call and giving him grace on holding a bunch of positions, but also giving him a plan on how to scope these positions and how to measure them in terms of metrics, and then also how to find something and make it his own. I would say there's a fifth quadrant that you need to focus on, which is finding something within your company, within your team, a metric that you personally want to improve. I would call this a project, right? And so when things calm down and things are running smooth in sales management, which is almost never, but you feel like you have a leash on the dog that is sales management, then you need to find something in that dog that you want to improve. You know, the example that I used with my guy today was the earnings per rep. Earnings per rep is a very important metric to me when I'm working with my consulting clients. And when I had Argenza, one of the important earnings or one of the important metrics to me was cost per hire, because I knew that recruiting was the lifeblood of what we did at that company, you know. And because of the nature of the way that we recruited and the turnover and the nature of the position, it was very important to have new people coming in on a daily basis. The cost per hire was one of those just key metrics that I constantly focused on improving. And my team was constantly executing on directives in order to get that down. And it was very database, very analytical, as you guys can imagine, but we improved it from originally our initial cost per hire metrics were at like 450. And over 1 year, we got them down to 250. So $200 per hire less. When you're hiring 70 to 80 people a month, that's a big deal. I'm saying. So the last thing I would say is find that metric, find that thing that you want to take on personally, and you want to work on improving that. Obviously, you need your team to help you improve it. But I know that if you're a good sales manager, you're always going to give your team credit for more sales, more gross volume, for gaining more territory, for closing the big deals, right? But there should be one thing in your sales management that you give yourself credit for, and that's what I'm saying to find. That's that one thing that you're like, hey, if I go after this, I'm going to be the reason that this thing moves the needle, and that's okay. I think that's healthy. It's healthy to understand that, hey, I'm leading this team, and when it's, you know, we hit big team goals, I'm going to get the team credit. But there's this one thing that I want to change in the company that I have a personal mission to change. That may be different every quarter. That may take a year. It may take 5 years, you know, just depending on what it is. But walking back through it, get the pulse with your team so you know what's going on the ground level. Get the cadence with your meetings and your structure. Get your schedule and scope put together so well that you're optimizing the effectiveness of your calendar and your time. And then get your assessment skills on point. Make sure you can look at a scorecard and know exactly what's going on in the company and the things that caused it so you can coach your team to greatness. And the last thing is find your metric that's important to you and get to executing on improving that metric. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for continuing to listen. Episode 319, Building Great Sales Teams. If you got some value from this episode, make sure you share, comment, like, create some engagement on the show. I've seen the numbers go up a little bit in the last couple of weeks, and I don't know if that's because of their solo episodes or because I'm putting out less episodes. And so I'm very curious to see what we can do with this thing and continue to grow it. And also, we will be launching TX Biz Dad, the podcast, very soon, where I will talk more about lifestyle, where I will talk more about God, where I will talk more about Texas, where I will talk more about barbecue and general business on that side of things. But we're going to keep building great sales teams tactical. We're going to keep it deep expertise in this subject, and we're going to keep it rolling. So I think you're going to see some guest episodes come up again, guys. Appreciate y'all for listening. Y'all have a wonderful day. And as always, let's get building.